following the conversations, the hot ones in fact, about gender being a social construct and the fluidity of gender identity? You might be wondering, why is this an inspiration for us? Well, why wouldn't it be? We are a women-focused nonprofit organization, and by women, we mean those of us who were born with genitals that biology as we know it says we are females.
Discussions, the term cisgender has ignited a range of perspectives among women, reflecting broader conversations about gender identity, societal labels, and inclusivity. These debates tap into important issues around women's empowerment, gender equality, and the ongoing evolution of how we define identity in today's world. Today, our Chairperson and President, Claudette Esterine Campbell, shares her thoughts on this important topic. In this clip from a recent episode of Daily Dose of Inspiration, we address the complexities of cisgender identity and how it intersects with women's rights, empowerment, and the evolving dialogue around gender.
However, in recent years, the debate and even demand by sectors of humanity that anyone can identify as a woman has raised concern in many quarters. Concerns regarding the possible erosion of hard fought for rights by women as we know that to be, or them to be. So today, this is our question and focus. Who are women? The publication called Psychology Today tells us, and I quote, "All humans are born with biological characteristics of sex, either male, female, or intersex. Gender, however, is a social construct and generally based on the norms, behaviors, and societal roles expected of individuals based primarily on their sex." It continues, "Gender identity describes a person's self-perceived gender, which could be male, female, or otherwise. In recent years, expanding the public understanding of gender has freed many to feel more comfortable in their own skin and live as the people they believe themselves to be." They also continued, "People whose gender identity corresponds to their biological sex may be referred to as cisgender. Transgender people
Every time I get around this particular woman, I turn into a kid again. Don't know what to say around it. I'm astounded by the beauty of her full demeanor. Every time I get around this particular woman, I turn
morning,
into
and thank you for joining me for another Sunday Spirit. My name is Claudette Esterine Campbell, and I am the President and Chairperson of the Daughters of Sheba Foundation. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's been causing quite a stir lately, the term cisgender, and how women feel about it. I will not spend time explaining the term cisgender, as you already had that explained in the opening clip. Let me simply cut to the chase and say many women aren't too keen on this label. Why? Well, for starters, some women feel that it's unnecessary, totally unnecessary. We've always been women, and we don't see why we need a special word to describe that. It's like saying, I'm a person who likes breathing air. It's just who we are. Others worry that the term might actually do more harm than good. They fear it could create a new division or new divisions or make people feel like they have to fit into certain boxes. And let's face it, haven't we been trying to break out of boxes for years now? Now, don't get me wrong, and for a second think that I'm anti any group who identify differently than society deems normal. That is the furthest thing from my mind. As a woman, born female, and for almost 60 years now have been identified as a woman, that is not my deal. As a Black woman, a woman of color, as some prefer to say, and full disclosure, which might be unnecessary, but I believe in being absolutely clear. This is not about sexuality as someone who has identified herself and lived contrary to society's norm. For 16 years of my life, the person who was, or so I thought, the center of my universe was a woman. With all the division and strife that we see daily around the world, I get what is the intention behind the term cisgender. I recognize that the intention is to be inclusive and to recognize that not everyone feel that their gender identity matches their birth sex. And I respect that. Many women, however, particularly those who support LGBTQ plus rights, accept being labeled as cisgender. They see it as neutral and a clarifying term that distinguishes their gender identity aligned with their birth sex from transgender identities. These women view the term as a necessary addition to the dialogue. They view it as a necessary addition to the conversations about gender, ensuring that all identities are identified and recognized. For those who believe and accept that gender identity is a spectrum, being called cisgender is seen as respectful, helps create an inclusive environment for people of all gender identities. But here's where it gets tricky. Some women feel that the term cisgender is being pushed on them without their consent. They didn't ask for this label, and they're not sure they want it. I am one of those women. There is discomfort with being labeled cisgender, and I am one of those who don't want to be categorized beyond being simply a woman. Frankly, my identity as a woman should not need a further qualification or clarification for that matter. I grew up in the 1970s in Kingston, Jamaica. My mother was a political activist and one of the earliest members of the women's movement of my homeland. I grew up watching her and would very soon join the movement for women's rights. By the time I turned 20 years old, I was a full-blown feminist. It's from my lived experience as a woman, and a Black woman at that, the oppression, the discrimination, and the disregard that I experienced both within Jamaica, across the Caribbean, in Europe, where I lived for 7 years, and even now in Canada, where I've lived and have been a citizen for over 20 years. That it's on those bases, on those realities, that I not only reject being called cisgender, but will fight against it. The term unnecessarily complicates our identity or diverts attention from issues affecting women as a whole. This focus and intent to call women, those of us born, lived, and who have experienced all that it means to be a girl, then a woman, this focus distracts from other important issues women face, like equal pay, fighting against violence. It distracts from racial and economic inequality. I count myself among the women who embrace intersectional feminism. Yes, I do. As a leader of this foundation, I've been very intentional about ensuring that women across the world, across races, religion, and cultures feel there is room here for them. But this is a mile too far, even for me. So what do? Well, maybe we need to listen more. One group of people, no matter how much money they have or social clout they wave around, ought not to have the right to dictate to 50% or 52% of the population worldwide how we should be identified. Instead of telling women, me, what we should call ourselves, why not ask us how we want to be addressed moving forward? It's that simple, right? It's also worth remembering, and I remember, that language changes over time. That I will admit and accept. What seems strange or unnecessary now might become normal in the future, or it might not. The important thing is to keep talking and listening to each other. In the end, what matters most is how we treat each other. And sadly, what I've been noticing and have even spoken about in our various conversations is that women, those of us born female and identified as girls, then women, have become the targets of politicians and their turning back of time when it comes to women's rights secured for over 50 years. I've also noticed a disturbing trend among some of the same people pushing this gender fluidity and identity changing agenda, degrading women. They have been degrading women, calling us out of our names, and disrespecting women, especially across social media. And I've also seen, sadly, women, especially older women, aiding and abetting the degradation of their true sisters. Whether someone uses the term cisgender or not, we should all strive to be kind, respectful, and understanding. To wrap up, the debate around cisgender shows us that gender and identity are complex topics. There's no one size fits all. Simply calling women cis is not the solution to the issues of concern to gay and transgender rights. Women's rights does not have to be slaughtered on the altar for another group to feel elevated. But by respecting each other's views, including that we, the mothers of Earth, wish not to be relegated to a prefix, cis, we can work towards a world where everyone feels seen and valued for who they are. Thank you for watching, and let's keep this conversation going.
Creator and giver of life, we come before you today, seeking your strength and wisdom in a world filled with confusion and shifting identities. We thank you for creating us in your image and likeness, for fashioning us as women with the unique and sacred responsibility of carrying and bringing forth life into this world. Help us, God, to stand firm in our identity as women, grounded in the truth of who you made us to be. Remind us that our worth and purpose come from you, not from the opinions of the world. Give us the courage to embrace our divine calling with grace, confidence, and humility, knowing that we were designed with intention and purpose. As we navigate conversations of gender fluidity and the ever-changing narratives around us, let us stand firm in the truth that being a woman is a sacred gift. Guide our hearts, divine, to walk in compassion and love toward others, while never wavering from the truth of who we are in you. We thank you for the gift of womanhood, the strength, wisdom, and nurturing spirit that we carry. May we continue to reflect your glory in all that we do. Amen.